Have you ever noticed how every year starts full of hope, but ends with the same regrets? New planner, new goals, new promises to yourself. You tell yourself, this year, it's going to be different. You feel the rush of possibility, the fresh energy of January. You tell your friends, make a post, even buy a new journal with gold lettering on the front that says, New Year, New Me. But by February, the excitement fades. You miss a few days, then a week, and then, by March, you're behind, unmotivated, frustrated, and by December, you're staring at the same to-do list you wrote 12 months ago, wondering where the time went. You begin to question yourself. Why can't I follow through? You start to carry quiet guilt, layering on top of each unmet goal, each abandoned plan. Why does this keep happening? Why do so many of us keep starting over again and again, year after year? Let me tell you a story. It's not about someone famous or someone extraordinary. It's about someone just like you. She was smart, passionate, full of vision. Every January she made a vision board, bought the books, declared her goals. Her energy was radiant. But somehow, March always felt like mud. June felt like survival. And by October, she was already promising next year would be the one. Her confidence would dip. She'd start thinking she was the problem. But she wasn't. Sound familiar? She didn't lack desire. She lacked a system. Rohn once said, you cannot make progress without a plan, and you cannot sustain success without a system. That quote changed everything for her, and it can for you. Because here's the truth. You see, motivation is great, but it's not enough. Vision is powerful, but it fades. Discipline is noble, but it needs a home. Only one thing carries you from dream to result: system thinking. And that's what today is about. Not hype, not hope. It's about a mindset shift, from chasing moments to building mechanisms, from depending on feelings to designing systems, from hoping you'll get it right to ensuring you stay on course. Because starting over isn't your problem. Your problem is not having a structure that sustains your momentum. You don't need more goals. You need a rhythm. You don't need a better version of yourself. You need a better container for your energy. You don't need more passion. You need more process. So if you're tired of resolutions that don't last, if you're done with feeling like every year is just a replay, if you've ever looked in the mirror and whispered, not again, then stay with me, because this isn't another motivational talk. This is your permission to stop starting over and start building something that sticks. Let's begin. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I always seem to circle back to square one? Why does every year feel like a rerun of the last? Why am I always beginning again? Let's be honest, most of us don't lack dreams or even discipline, at least not in January. We start the year strong. We make a plan, we set the goals, the fitness routine, the reading list, the journaling habit. We declare, this year, I'm all in. And for a while, we are. Until we aren't. The gym visits fade, the journaling stops, the habit tracker goes blank. And slowly that spark we had, it dims. Not in an explosion, but in quiet, subtle erosion. Not because we gave up, but because we weren't equipped to continue. We entered a marathon with the mindset of a sprinter. We had vision, but lacked infrastructure. We had energy, but no map. We go from I'm doing this, to I'll try again next week, to maybe next year. To what's the point? To I guess I'm just not that kind of person. But here's the real question. Why does that happen? What's really going on? Because it's not that you're lazy or weak or broken. It's because you've been taught the wrong model for change. You've been sold the idea that change is a sprint, that breakthroughs are born from hype, that success comes from passion and intensity. But here's the truth. Intensity might start the fire, but only systems keep it burning. Let's talk about the pattern. The one we don't admit out loud, but we all know by heart. It's what I call the restart loop. January, motivation is high. You feel unstoppable. You read more, you journal, you join communities. February, reality returns, distractions show up, life throws curveballs, energy dips, momentum begins to wobble. March, guilt creeps in. You've missed some days. You're behind. You start negotiating with your goals. You look at your planner, and it looks back at you like a mirror of disappointment. April, you shift focus. You say, I'll come back to it later, but later becomes never. May through September, the lull. the limbo, the land of unfinished plans, unwritten chapters, ungraded promises, undone potential. Then comes October, regret, reflection, a sense of where did the year go? And by December, you're planning again. Same goals, new version, same promises, same planner, same fire with no foundation, and the cycle repeats. That's the loop. And it's not just personal, it's cultural. We've created a world that worships the start and ignores the structure. We glorify hustle, we fetishize speed, we confuse visibility with effectiveness. We reward beginnings but neglect the art of follow-through. We celebrate New Year's resolutions, but not March consistency. We praise vision boards, but not system audits. We chase feelings, but we neglect frameworks. We love the spark of inspiration, but abandon the discipline that keeps the flame alive. We look for the next hack, trick, shortcut instead of committing to a process. And because of that, we begin to confuse effort with alignment. We think working hard is the same as working smart. We confuse starting with sustaining. We mistake motion for progress and busyness for purpose. We trick ourselves into thinking we're making progress when we're really just running in place. The truth is, you don't fail because you lack desire. You fail because you lack design. Let's go deeper. Most people set goals based on emotion. They wait for the perfect mood. They rely on motivation. But motivation is fleeting. It's a guest. It comes. It goes. You don't need a guest. You need a guide. That guide is a system. One that catches you when you stumble. One that keeps you moving when your energy dips. One that creates rhythm when life gets chaotic. A system isn't glamorous. It isn't sexy. But it works. Jim Rohn said it best. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Not once. Not when you feel like it. But every single day. Even when it's boring. Even when no one's watching. Especially when it feels pointless, because that's when it matters most. You see, most people don't struggle with setting goals. They struggle with sustaining energy, because they try to rely on willpower alone. But willpower is like a battery. It drains fast. Systems? They recharge you. They remove decision fatigue. They create default actions that align with your destiny. They reduce friction. They create clarity. They become your internal autopilot, nudging you forward. They simplify your choices. They turn chaos into cadence. So ask yourself, do I have a system or just a wish list? Do I have routines or just resolutions? Do I have a process or just hope? Because without structure, your goals don't stand a chance. Without a framework, your fire burns out. Without accountability, your ambition drifts. Without automation, your identity dissolves into intention alone. Here's the truth. Discipline is not about self-control. It's about self-alignment. It's about creating an environment that supports the identity you want to embody. It's about aligning your habits with your highest vision. It's about shaping your day to fit your destiny. It's not about trying harder. It's about designing smarter. You're not weak. You're understructured. You're not undisciplined. You're unaligned. You don't need more fire. You need a furnace. You don't need a bigger why. You need a better how. You don't need inspiration. You need infrastructure. And that's why this talk matters. Because when you stop blaming your lack of results on your lack of effort and start building the systems that support consistency, that's when everything begins to change. That's when the fog lifts. That's when your identity catches up with your intentions. That's when your confidence starts coming from evidence, not hype. That's when you stop starting over and start becoming unshakable. Let's begin with a quote that sounds simple but holds deep truth. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Jim Rohn. At first glance, it feels like a nice thought, a motivational soundbite. But look again, let it sink in. It's not about genius, not about breakthroughs, not about hustle. It's about systematic discipline, small actions done consistently that compound into results. Small hinges swing big doors. Tiny routines build extraordinary lives. This is the essence of Jim Rohn's philosophy, that success isn't an event, it's a structure. It's not a sprint, it's a system. And systems are not spontaneous, they're intentional. They're constructed with thought, trial, correction, and commitment. So today, we explore the system thinking that Jim Rohn lived by and taught to millions. We'll walk through 3 pillars of his thinking. 1. Mental model. Your philosophy shapes your future. 2. Behavioral loop. Small actions repeated daily create your destiny. 3. Emotional foundation. Discipline is sustained by emotional clarity and values. Each pillar isn't just a theory, it's a practice, a blueprint, a way of living. Let's begin with the first. 1. Mental model. Your philosophy shapes your future. Jim Rohn believed that your personal philosophy is the foundation of your entire life. What you believe, what you value, how you think. These become the filters through which you see the world and the levers through which you shape it. Think of it this way. Every decision you make is filtered through your beliefs. Every habit you choose reflects your philosophy. Jim once said, "Don't just read the easy stuff. You may be entertained by it, but you will never grow from it." Growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from challenge, from contradiction, from reflecting, then refining. Your mental model decides whether a challenge becomes an obstacle or an opportunity. If you think change must be dramatic, you'll dismiss small actions. If you think success is about talent, you'll ignore practice. If you think discipline is restriction, you'll resist it. But if you think of discipline as design, you begin to see structure not as a cage, but as a bridge. But if you adopt a system-based mindset, if you believe progress comes from process, then every small win becomes part of a larger design. The beauty of systems thinking is that it decentralizes motivation. You don't have to feel amazing every day, you just have to stay consistent. This is where system thinking starts, not with tasks, but with thought. You must rewire your mental model, from goal obsession to system design, from emotion-driven to value-driven, from wishful thinking to deliberate structure, from what do I want to who do I need to become daily to create that. The system is built first in your mind, then in your day, then in your life, because your life is a reflection of your mental architecture. 2. Behavioral loop. Habits are your hidden blueprint. Now let's move from thoughts to actions. Jim Rohn's system thinking says, your results are not mysterious. They're measurable, predictable, trackable, because behavior is a loop. Cue, action, result, reinforcement. Pause. Point 5. Jim taught this clearly. Success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals. So what are those fundamentals? They're not grand gestures, they're simple disciplines. Waking up with a plan, reflecting on your day, writing down your goals, reviewing your progress, keeping your word to yourself. These habits may look small, but they form your behavioral architecture. And systems thinking asks, is my current loop designing the future I want? If not, don't force change through willpower. Redesign the loop. Create triggers that lead to aligned actions. Stack habits. Reduce friction. Turn your phone on airplane mode before journaling. Leave your book on your pillow. Use alarms as cues. Use your environment as a compass. Jim believed in preparation. He would say, don't start the day until you've finished it on paper. That's not just planning, that's engineering your outcomes. Emotional foundation. Feeling drives follow-through. Finally, no system survives without an emotional engine. Jim Rohn wasn't a robot. He taught discipline through feeling, not force. He said, learn to be happy with what you have while you pursue all that you want. That is emotional clarity, gratitude and ambition in harmony. Here's the truth. Your habits will break the moment they feel meaningless. That's why your system must be rooted in your values, your reasons, your identity, not what looks good, not what gets likes, what aligns with your soul. When your environment, actions, and purpose are in sync, discipline flows naturally. You don't push, you're pulled. You don't have to constantly restart because your system sustains you. And that's the ultimate goal, a system that is aligned, not overwhelming, not performative, but true. Final reflection, build the bridge. Jim Rohn said, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. That bridge is not built in a day, it's built daily, brick by brick, habit by habit, choice by choice. If you want to stop starting over, you don't need more motivation. You need a system, a mindset that supports, a routine that anchors, a reason that drives. Start with the mental model. Design the behavioral loop, fortify it with emotional clarity, and most of all, let your system become a reflection of your identity, not who you wish you were, but who you choose to become. That is Jim Rohn's system thinking. That is how you stop starting over. So far, we've explored mindset, we've uncovered philosophy, we've walked through loops of habit and layers of discipline. But now, it's your turn. Because awareness without action is just decoration. Insight without implementation is just information. So let's make this real. Let's move from thinking in circles to walking in systems. Today, I want to offer you 3 small but powerful actions. Not complicated, not overwhelming, but effective. These are practical tools you can use right away to change the way you start, and more importantly, to stop the cycle of starting over. Let's begin. Action 1. Journal your restart loop. The first step in changing a pattern is seeing it, noticing it, naming it. Most people repeat their failures because they never stop to study them. So your first action, journal your restart loop. Ask yourself, what goals do I keep revisiting every year? When do I usually fall off track? What triggers my drop in motivation? What excuses do I hear in my own head? What emotion do I feel when I give up? Be honest, be gentle, but be clear. This is not about judgment, it's about clarity, because patterns lose power when you write them down. When you journal the journey, you start to see where you actually get lost. You begin to trace the drop-off point. You realize it wasn't everything that failed, it was a few key moments that collapsed the rhythm. And that's empowering, because now you can prepare for them. If every February you burn out, write that. If your trigger is comparison, name it. If your drop-off happens after missing 3 days, highlight that. Now your restart loop isn't a mystery, it's a map. And when you can anticipate the dip, you can prevent it. So tonight, before the day ends, open your notebook or notes app. Write your restart loop profile. Don't overthink it, just capture what tends to repeat. Then take a breath and get ready for action 2. Create a keystone habit. Not all habits are equal. Some are keystones. A keystone habit is one small behavior that influences everything else. It sets the tone. It builds momentum. It anchors your day. Jim Rohn said, "The major reason for setting goals is to compel you to become the person it takes to achieve them." The keystone habit is how you become that person. So what does this look like? Pick one small habit, something you can do every day in 3 to 5 minutes. Something so simple, it's almost impossible to fail. Examples: 3 minutes of journaling each morning, reviewing your goals at night, stretching before checking your phone, drinking water before coffee, writing one gratitude line every evening. The habit doesn't matter as much as the identity it builds, because when you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you shift your identity from someone who tries to someone who follows through. That micro win becomes a thread, and when repeated, that thread becomes the fabric of consistency. So what's one habit that is easy to start, aligns with the version of you want to become, feels meaningful, even if small? Pick it, name it, schedule it, and do it. Every single day. This one habit isn't about the task, it's about training. It's about becoming someone who can trust themselves again. Consistency is not built in the gym or the library or the goal sheet. It's built in these small sacred moments, when no one's watching, when it's easier not to, when you choose to do it anyway. That's discipline. That's identity. That's where the cycle breaks. Action 3. Install a rhythm reminder system. The final step, make it easy to remember what matters. Because most people don't fail from lack of ambition, they fail from lack of reminders. So here's your challenge. Build a system of reminders. Not motivation, not hype, just structure. Here are a few options. Use sticky notes. Write "stay with it" on your bathroom mirror. Set alarms labeled "remember who you're becoming." Use a wall calendar to X off each day you complete your habit. Change your phone wallpaper to a quote that anchors you. Put your journal on your pillow so you see it before bed. These are cues. They are anchors. They keep your system visible. Because when your system is invisible, your habits become optional. But when your system is obvious, your effort becomes automatic. This is how you design behavior. Make it visible, make it simple, make it unavoidable. Pause points. You're not lazy, you're overwhelmed, and reminders reduce the need for willpower. They make your identity tangible, your intentions harder to forget. So choose 1-2 reminder tools. Set them up today. Not perfect, just present, and watch how much easier it becomes to show up, even on hard days. Final invitation, vote for your future. So here we are, 3 actions. Each one simple, each one small, each one powerful. 1. Journal your restart loop. 2. Create a keystone habit. 3. Install a rhythm reminder. Point 5s. You don't need to do them all at once. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin. Because every action is a vote, not for perfection, but for alignment. Not for the crowd, but for your future self. And if you're tired of starting over, then stop trying to change everything. Start changing something. Not someday, today. Not all of it. Just the next right thing. And do it again tomorrow. Because momentum isn't magic, it's rhythm. And rhythm starts with one quiet step. One small vote for the person you're becoming. Let that vote be cast today. Here we are, at the end of this talk. Or maybe at the beginning of something real. You've listened. You've reflected. You've been reminded of the version of you that's still waiting to rise. You've walked through loops of behavior. You've looked truthfully at the systems you lack. You've imagined what alignment could feel like. And now, it's time to decide. Because insight is only powerful if it leads to movement. Words are only meaningful if they echo in your actions. Clarity without courage changes nothing. So let's come back to why we're here. Let's return to the root. Why do we keep starting over? Why do we feel stuck in the loop? It's not because you're broken. It's because you were building on bursts instead of systems. You were relying on hype instead of habits. You were waiting for the moment rather than creating momentum. And what Jim Rohn taught us is that transformation doesn't require massive change. It requires daily alignment. It requires structure. It requires internal leadership. It requires asking yourself, not what's next, but what's repeatable. Point 5. Discipline is the bridge, but you are the builder. And every builder needs plans, needs tools, needs reminders, needs grit. And now you have the blueprint. Not a blueprint for intensity, but for consistency. Not for the finish line, but for the rhythm. So I ask you now, what would it mean to stop hoping for a breakthrough and start building one? What would it look like to make success boring, to make progress predictable? What would it mean to stop chasing feelings and start crafting rhythms? What would it mean to stop waiting for the new year and claim a new identity today? What would it mean if the new you was already here and just needed structure to survive? Because if we're honest, you don't need a new plan, you need a new pattern. You don't need another list of goals, you need a system that holds them. You don't need more inspiration, you need implementation. You don't need more motivation, you need reminders. You don't need better effort, you need fewer distractions. So let's remember what we've uncovered. Your philosophy shapes your perception. Your habits sculpt your results. Your emotions fuel your consistency. Your systems sustain your momentum. Your rhythms create the legacy. And together, they create a life that doesn't just start strong, but finishes stronger. They create a version of you that no longer runs in circles, but rises in cycles. That's the power of system thinking. It replaces guilt with grace. It replaces chaos with clarity. It replaces restarting with recoding your rhythm. It replaces effort with identity. And now, you get to choose. Not just what you'll do, but who you'll become. Not someday, but today. Because identity isn't inherited, it's installed by the small actions you repeat, by the promises you keep, by the quiet votes you cast for your future self every single day, by showing up, especially when you don't feel like it. So if this message spoke to something deeper inside you, if it lit a fire not just of emotion, but of responsibility, then here's your invitation. Don't just remember this talk, respond to it. Don't just agree, act. Don't just nod, nurture. Don't just say, I want this. Prove it, one step at a time. And if you're ready to begin, then leave a mark, not for me, but for you, for the you who's been waiting, for the you who's done with drifting, for the you who's ready to choose. Write these words somewhere you'll see them every day. I choose to build systems. Say them aloud if you must. Whisper them to your journal. Text them to your future self. Let it be your reminder. Let it be your reset. Let it be your realignment. Let it be the signal that you're done living in loops and ready to live in alignment. Because this isn't just about productivity or discipline or goals. It's about reclaiming authorship of your life, of your energy, of your story, of your self-belief. And Jim Rohn's voice still echoes. For things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. So make this your turning point, not because it's dramatic, but because it's yours. Not because the world sees it, but because you feel it. Not because someone else said you should, but because you finally said, it's time. Build the system, live the rhythm, and never start from scratch again. Revisit the roots, rewrite the patterns, redesign the path. Because the next version of you doesn't restart, they recalibrate. They realign, they refocus, and then they rise quietly, consistently, proudly. So what's your first move? Choose it, own it, write it down, and then live it.